Welcome back to what is going to be the final layout update at the layout here at my house. I've had the fortunate opportunity to be moving houses a couple miles down the road, but it's bigger space. It's going to allow me to do more with the model railroading, and the house overall will be better suited to my needs. And so this is going to be the final update, and just sort of cherishing all the work I put in over the past 4 years working on this layout and where it's come from. So out here in the hallway are my display cases of my locomotives, a lot of 6-axle locomotives out there. And then over here are some of the cars that I've weathered or gathered. There you can see the CSX Coke train that I've customized and done each one of those individually. And then when we walk around here into the corner, we walk into the layout room. All this is going to be coming down in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be preparing it to rent the house out while I move into the new house. So with that, let's go around and take a look at the final details and everything that is on this layout before we go into the update and some of the cars and locomotives I've weathered. For those that may not have followed throughout the process, I model Barberton, Ohio, ABC Railway, and the CSX New Castle Sub. The ABC Railway has trackage rights on the New Castle Sub up just north of Akron, where it hooks off to the Wheeling Lake Erie. So this is the portion that I'm modeling. Here we're in Barberton Yard, Barberton, Ohio. This is where the ABC Railway, the CSX and the Wheeling Lake Erie interchange cars with the ABC Railway. I have my two custom SW1500s over here in the engine parking area, and then I have a couple tracks for interchanging with those two railroads. With that, as we come a little farther along, we have the iconic Barberton, Ohio water tower. This has been there for a very long time, but it's one of the signature pieces of, or signature infrastructure pieces in the city. It's not exactly in the right position, but it's the best I could do. And then swinging around, we have the Ohio and Erie Canal and the Robinson Avenue Bridge. This also isn't quite in the correct position, but I wanted to model it on my layout. And then as we swing around, we get to the swing bridge. And then we get to our first industry, which hasn't gone very far in 4.5 years, but PPG Industries. This industry here takes in chlorine and will make, chlorine, hydrochloric acid to make silica. On the real prototype, there's actually another building that will load the silica onto the covered hoppers and then ship out. I wasn't able to model this, so here I have a chlorine spot and a silica hopper spot for this layout. The next layout I do, I'm going to learn from some of my mistakes and also make it better by trying to make it more prototypical. Moving farther along, we have the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail. I've biked this trail multiple times when I was in college and also living back near Akron. This leads off into PC Sales and Services. This is an exchange industry where you can transload, offload, whether it be different types of chemicals, fuels, or plastic pellets. As we can see, I have two different tracks. The back tracks hold 4 covered hoppers, and while the front tracks hold tank cars. And then I have ethanol tank spot, which is on the far left here of your screen, and then general tank cars to the right. Going a little further, we go to Snyder Avenue. This is also very close to PC Sales and Services. Not fully in the correct spot, but it's the best I could do for this layout. And then we swing around to Continental Carbon. This closed roughly in 2017, 2018, I'd say, but I really like having carbon hoppers on my layout as they're a very unique piece of rolling stock and also very notorious with ABC Railway. And then up front, we had what was Carter Jones lumber. However, the lumber cars and box cars just looked too long and out of place for this layout, so I turned this into a CSX local staging track. And again, when I do my next layout, I'm going to learn from a lot of the things that didn't go as well during this layout that I can improve on the next. And then as we swing around, we hit the Tuscaroras River before it connects back to Barberton Yard, where I can have full running around in case I'm showing off or have other people here that just want to run trains. And now moving just below the layout, I have my pull-out drawers This is the operating staging yard for my railroad. I have to manually move cars on and off of the railroad based on the operational scheme that I'm going to be running. I have one over here, and on the left side I have another staging set. And then moving to the left is my workbench area where I can do all my weathering and updating to rolling stock or building buildings. Over the past month, I've just been doing some carbon hoppers and then also my first 2 locomotives, which we will get into here in a second. But overall, this was a really good layout. I really enjoyed it. A lot of things I learned, and some of the big things I realized on my next layout I'm going to do is I'm going to have dedicated staging for the trains. I found it very difficult that there was no staging available for when I want to do operation sessions, and so I think it took a little bit away from it. And then I also want to have a dedicated main line for the CSX New Castle Sub, and then I think I'm going to spur end the ABC Railway Industry Line route so that you have to bring them back. And I think just overall, the next layout I do is going to be much bigger. In terms of the timeline, I'm hoping to be moving here in the next couple weeks. I don't think I'll begin a layout up and running in the next 6 months or so, but I will keep a room for my workbench, and so I can at least continue to do some of my models. So I am ready to get a layout and design a layout in the new house. I will do that. I still haven't decided which room in the new house is going to have the layout, as there's a couple possible options, but I'm just going to wait and see and enjoy the opportunity to do something different and a new start to this railroad, and to be able to make it better and to be able to make it more realistic. So with that, let's hop into looking at some of the weathering that I've done over the past month. Starting off with our scale trains carbon black hoppers, I did CTNX 4816. The picture of the prototype should be popping up here on the top. There's very distinct light rust coming off, or fresh rust coming from the top sill, which I modeled there. You have FRA safety striping, and then there's also a little bit of black goo or black something on the FRA safety striping, which I added. The top the whole car was faded down with white, and then used oil paints and powders to get it to the color it is at currently. The top obviously has a lot of spillage of carbon black. And then the other side had the same thing with a bunch of fresh rust coming down from that top sill. The next car I did was a TCMX carbon black hopper. This here had the same thing where I faded it down with an airbrush, white, and then I came in with oil paints to give the rust, the dirt, and the grime. And then finally added some white oil paints to be able to create that faded down logo that we can see. Top, same thing as the other one, where I had black weathering powders that would allow it to look like carbon black has spilled out. And then here is the other side of that car. I also gave myself a chance to do my first locomotive. It was an ES40 DC by Intermountain. I have some issues with this one. When I got it, I was missing some of the details, so I figured this was a perfect one to start on. What I first did was paint the PTC antennas on the stock Intermountain cars, or locomotives. They're just white. I then came in and faded down the whole car body with white, painted airbrushed each of the grills, masked it off with blue painter's tape to make sure I didn't miss anything, and then went through and had black and earth brown on the trucks and the fuel tank to be able to create that prototypical, spray from just the earth and the dirt and the mud. And then also faded down the CSX logo, brushed black weathering powder over it, and then took a wet Q-tip and paper towel to remove as much as I could, but also be able to create those that had the details pop from the molding. The top here has exhaust coming out from the back, and then I've noticed on other ES40 DCs on prototypes, there's usually sort of a rust path, almost like what's a walkway coming through, and so I represented a little bit of that there. The other side has the exact same thing. This is where you have the broken handrail, so ignore that. But overall, I think this, for my first locomotive weathering job, looks really good. I even tried to paint some of the wheels, but that was a little more difficult than I thought, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do that in the future. And then the second locomotive I did was a UP SD70 ACE number 8365. This one's a much heavier weathering job. Same thing, came through and faded down the model before I came back with earth brown and black for the trucks. I masked off all the inlet and exhaust vents and painted those black. It came in with a little bit of oil paints, white, burnt umber, to be able to get some of the fading on some of this striping and also on the American flag and the UP Herald. After that, I came through with black weathering powders, put it on the whole model, and then took that wet Q-tip and paper towel to remove as much as I could. And then the top, same thing, you have a bunch of exhaust, and then this is really faded down because of the sun, and I was able to come in with some oil paints to create some of that rust effects. And then here is the other side of that model. Here's a shot of the front end of the UP engine, moving on to the CSX or ES40DC, and then the last ones are the scale trains, carbon black hoppers right there. So with that is going to wrap it up. And with that, the layout here is pretty much finished. If you want to get more details on how I weathered some of my rolling stock and locomotives, reach out to my Facebook page, CSX New Castle Subdivision. I give there a much more detailed written description on how I weathered both rolling stock and locomotives. Otherwise, thanks for following along, and pretty much right after this video, I'm going to start taking down the signs and the lights, getting ready to prepare to move. So with that, we'll see you soon. Here's an update where we are at. I was able to take most of the placards on top down and all the buildings off the layout. And I was also able to remove the swing bridge. So with that, the next thing to do is to get the rest of the stuff underneath the layout out of here. And then I'll start off with taking the valance on top and then cutting the sections of the layout. Just checking in, this is what's left after day one. I was able to remove 5 of the 7 modules. I got 2 of them left, and then I got touch up paint, baseboards, and the door to the closet. And after a little more than a day of work, this is all that's left. Pretty bare, empty room, finishing up, ready to get ready to rent out.